saturate very quickly, but if you spread the light, put the astrograph out of focus, you can get a more accurate measure of magnitude from the density of an extrafocal image. So he came to similar conclusions to Helm, that there were large systematic errors. The scales were close at magnitude 6, but diverged greatly thereafter for the fainter stars by up to 1.7 magnitudes, according to Pickering. So that meant the magnitudes were perhaps of limited use and probably they're not referred to today at all. By the way, Pickering was one of those who introduced the Pogson scale into photographic magnitudes. And he said that one magnitude is 10 to the power 0.4, 2.516 times. And I'm not sure if Kapteyn did that because he was using these visual calibrations, which had not yet used the Pogson scale that we use today. So that's all I wanted to say about the CPD. It was a very revolutionary program. And there is Kapteyn and David Gill once again. Thank you.
Actually, and then each other in person. Once the work begins. Correspondence.
I am not sure of the answer, but Pete will know.
Remembered by his daughter, brother's biography from. Better now? So, well, oh, yeah, that's better. Gill visited Groningen a number of times, 3 or 4 times, if I remember well, in the course of his life. And Kapteyn actually visited Cape once, but that was after the completion of the CPD. But during the CPD, I think there was 1 or 2 meetings they had. They became very good friends, and after Gill returned to London, where he spent his final years, they visited a number of times. The Kapteyn's visited London a number of times. So they've seen each other regularly and corresponded, of course, extensively.
Thank you, Pete. I knew you should have been giving this talk all along. You're a real expert, but what I do know is they corresponded a lot, and their letters, some of which I quoted from, are still extant. So that was a great friendship built on correspondence. Of course, in those days, when you wrote a letter, you put it in the mail. A month later, it might be received, and the answer would come 2 months after that. Well, more questions. So we go to Sarah first, and then you.
My question is, when do they start to use color filtering for light? Thank you. My question is, when did they start to use colored filters with the photographic process, at least on the darkroom side, to try to correct for different wavelengths of light in the exposures?
Well, I think that was in the 1920s, and people didn't really think about the spectra of stars and wavelengths and colors very much before that. But the whole business of the North Polar sequence as calibration for photometry, it really required filters, and they were not used until the late 1920s, if I remember correctly. And that's why photometry had such a rocky start in life. And the CPD just came too early. So colored filters are really essential for anyone doing photographic photometry.
We have another question.
I just want to comment that Gill had a lot of opposition from the Astronomer Royal in England, and people feel he was actually jealous of what Gill was achieving. But one of the problems was that he didn't have enough money to start the CPD, so he suggested to his wife she spend half of his salary towards it. So she agreed, and it cost them a great many domestic economies, as he put it. But anyway, it was an important contribution to the funding.
Thank you, Ian. Yeah, it's very magnanimous of Gill's wife to do that. And so that must have caused quite a lot of privations in the Gill household, seeing half their salary disappeared to science.
I was intrigued by the way that Kapteyn set up essentially would set up the plate and then the theodolite and get right ascension and declination without having to do all the math, essentially right from the plate rather than takes a lot of that's right. It takes a lot of calculation.
Without a computer, it would have been a horrendous job. Probably more precise in the end, but not really realistic if you want to measure 500,000 stars.
Kapteyn, of course, developed that method himself. He actually tried very hard to get the Cartier to adopt the same method. He even had some funding to build a prototype for it, but it was never adopted by the Cartier. So, when the Hipparcos satellite went up, they had to still reduce all the rectangular measurements to coordinates in the sky. Very clever. Yeah. Question I had, John, you had in your title the different personalities. So what can you say about the different personalities of Gill and Kapteyn?
Well, I think Gill was, I'm guessing a little bit, I think he was very ambitious and probably fairly extroverted, and Kapteyn was very methodical and careful operator, probably a little bit introverted. Is that your assessment too? So they did have different personalities, but they seemed to collaborate extremely well.
They were
Complementary, exactly. So maybe that's a good thing. Therefore, yeah, two extroverts working together quite often doesn't work, as we've seen in American politics. Trump and Vance. Yes.
How did the two of them actually encounter each other in the first place? Where would they have first met? How would Kapteyn have known about this work to make the volunteer?
They were corresponding, is that right? And
Kapteyn had written a paper on determining absolute declinations, and he sent a copy of that to Gill, who read the paper. It was in German, actually. Gill said, "Oh, that's an excellent paper," and a few months later thought, "I had it translated. Now I can see it's an excellent paper." So maybe the first remark shouldn't be taken that seriously. And from then on, they kept agreeing, and Gill was mentioning all the time that he had so much work to do to get these things reduced as a sort of a bait to Kapteyn, which took a half a year or so before Kapteyn to take the bait.
Unfortunately, Kapteyn seemed to be able to write English very fluently, like most Europeans, and Gill, being British, was hopeless at foreign languages. And of course, Kapteyn was famous for his plan of selected areas in, I think, 1902. So 1906. All right, thank you. And so he had all these selected areas in the sky where you meant to get data for every kind of possible data for the stars in that area to do stellar statistics. So that was his next big project as soon as CPD had finished.
I think we have to move on in view of the time. So I'd like to call on the second speaker, Ileana Kinichi, I think is her pronunciation, the Cartichel project and the crucial role played by the Cape Observatory.
Which one? Which one? This one or this one?
Thank you very much. As we have just listened from John, the Paris Observatory was one of the first astronomical observatory that has a photographic department. It was made thanks to the initiative of the director, Admiral Ernest Mouchet, who in 1879 established an atelier photographique at the observatory, and he entrusted this atelier to two famous opticians, the brothers Paul and Prosper Henry, and he charged them with the task to develop special photographic equipment for astronomical purposes. In 1882, Admiral Mouchet received a photograph already mentioned. This photograph was reproducing a picture of the comet of the Great Comet of 1882. This photograph came from Cape Observatory and was sent by the director, David Gill. But it was not interesting the subject of the photograph, but the background of the photograph. Sometimes like a sort of gestalt procedure. It was much more interesting the background, because the background was showing a number of stars, also faint stars. And this immediately drew the attention of the astronomers. As it has been already said by John, this photograph was sent by Admiral Mouchet was presented by Admiral Mouchet to the Académie des Sciences, and this report, in this report, Admiral Mouchet said that we are ready to have now, it is possible now, to make star charting by means of photographs. And of course, he charged the brothers Henry to develop this kind of equipment. And in 1884, they were able to obtain excellent plates, photographic plates of the sky. These plates were also sent to the Cape of because Gill was informed about these beautiful plates from, it was informed by Huggins. And he wrote to Mouchet that he was interested to have a copy and how have you obtained these results. And from this interest, a close correspondence started. And he also spoke to Mouchet about his idea, his project of make a photographic map of southern events. And Gill Mouchet replied to Gill that he sent the photographs and explained all the details about these photographs. And also he announced that it was they were making a new special equipment for the photography, for star photography. And in May 1885, he announced to Gill that this instrument was ready. And this instrument was the Cathédrale photographique. A special astrograph made the optical parts were by the Henri brothers, and the mechanical parts from the Paul Gaultier, an instrument maker in Paris. It was a double telescope with visual lens and photographic lens. And with this beautiful instrument, the brothers Henri were able to obtain wonderful plates with stars to magnitude 14. And of course, these plates were sent to Gill, and Gill was very impressed by these results. But it also wrote to Gill that yes, these are very interesting plates, but I don't think that star charts are really interesting from a scientific point of view. I think that it is much more interesting to have a catalog, star catalog. And of course, he didn't want to underestimate the value of the efforts of Mouchet, but he was much more convinced that catalog was much more important than the charts. In any case, he was ready to propose a plan for this photographic project, and also he said that the work should be undertaken on a carefully prepared plan, be continued on a uniform system, and only in a great national establishment we can find all these conditions. Anyway, he wrote that he was ready to cooperate for a carte du ciel project. Starting from this moment, the role of Gill in the project became more and more important for many reasons. First, because he really contributed to the planning of this project. Also because he gave many practical suggestions, provided many practical suggestions, but also he also tried to solve many problems. We can say that it can be considered like a sort of eminence grise of the project. And as we shall see, all the project was developed along the axis Paris-Cape Town. First, the letter, a very important letter sent by Gill to Mouchet in May 1886, contains a sort of draft of the plan of the project, and he suggested that this project to photograph the whole sky can be divided into two classes. The first is to make a catalog to be published, and the second is a photographic library of the heavens, sort of charts. Anyway, it is important to have a conference and to speak about this project in April 1887. And that is really also the schedule was suggested by Gill. And also they gave some suggestions also from a diplomatic point of view, how to send the letters of invitation, not directly, but through the academy and through the Foreign Office. And Mouchet entirely accepted the suggestion and really invited all the participants, thanks to the fight for the intermediary of the Foreign Office. Moreover, Gill suggested also the publications of the plates. They can be reproduced on paper and distributed so that any astronomer can have a paper copy of the plates and can make measurement on this and can do, and it was really made. And also he mentioned that it was an idea that he had also with Captain when he was working to the CPD, but it was too much expensive and they did not made this. They did not make this. But in a certain important international project, they have to also to think about the publication of the charts. The Astrographic Congress was held in Paris in April 1887, And an international permanent commission was established with the directors, all the participant observatories, plus members from the most important contributors, a sort of SOC of the Congress. And also they decided to have a meeting every 2 years, but this happened only at the beginning, but then they started to be irregularly. They start to meet in regular frequencies because the project met with many difficulties and problems and started to be fragmented and so on. Anyway, one of the problems since the beginning was that the project was had some ambiguities, especially the ambiguity was between the catalog and the chart. Gill wrote an important report in the journal The Observatory, and he started announcing that the project is focused on making a photographic chart of the sky up to the 14th magnitude. But he also added that another series of plates of shorter exposure will be made and to make the construct a catalog. So since the beginning, from the beginning, we see these two somehow competition between these two parts of the same project. And moreover, of course, we need also some meridian observation to determine the absolute places of the brightest stars on each plate so that the measurement can be made with some reference stars. So the project started becoming increasingly complex. Not only we have the carte du ciel as the star charting, but we have also an astrographic catalog aside, and also we have to prepare a reference stars catalog. So it starts just with the photographic maps of the sky, but it became more and more complex. And what is important is that Gill strongly supported the idea of the catalog more than that of a chart, because he was convinced that the point capital is not the carte photographique du ciel, but it is the catalog that will make an epoch in the history of astronomy. And he also confirmed this idea, writing to Pickering, who was working to his own project of making a star map of the photographic map of the sky. Our true function is the catalog. Even if the chart is much more appealing for the general public, but it is not the scientific core of the project. Scientific core of the project is the catalog. This is Gill is strongly convinced about this, and we shall see that he really drive the project in this direction. Of course, when the initial project became the initial project of a chart became that of a catalog, there was a strong reaction from the international community, and especially in the British context, the editors of the journal, The Observatory, attacked this decision, as they thought that the catalog has been illegally substituted for a chart, and indirectly they attacked Gill because they knew very well that it was Gill that was pushing in this direction, and for this reason. The Moshe was obliged to come in help to Gill and wrote to the observatory a letter assuring that the production, the construction of the catalog will not give any delay to the completion of the chart. As we have already heard, Gill met opposition and was aware that he would have met opposition in his own country. And he didn't have the financial support for the Cape for the CPD, but you also have to overcome some difficulties for involving the British observatories in the Carte du Ciel project. I think that may be also the usual competition between British and French people was good in this sense. And first difficulties was to overcome the sort of prejudice of the British astronomers and observatories and makers in favor of reflector. But for photographic work, it was necessary to have refractors. And for this reason, Gill started a sort of a very strong communication strategy. He went around going conferences, giving conferences, and showing the beautiful plates obtained at Paris Observatory, and trying to convince the public opinion and also the government, as a consequence, of the need to have refractors for the photographic work. But of course, there is another problem to overcome. The astrograph Henri Gautier was made in France. It was really difficult to accept that British observatories were equipped with French instruments. And for this reason, the British, British instrument makers, Howard Crabb, wrote to Gill, first proposing that he could construct the instrument for the British observatories, but also threatening that if the government send the orders to France, he will take steps to have the question raised in the House of Parliament. So it risked to become also a political affair. And for this reason, all the instrument of the British observatories participating in the Carte du Ciel project were made by Crabb, not only from Greenwich and Cape, but also for the colonial observatories in Australia. Now, if we look at the list of the participant observatories at the Carte du Ciel project, we see that, of course, there is a core from the French observatories, Paris, Bordeaux, Toulouse, and the Colonial Observatory of Algiers. But we can see that there is also another strong group of British observatories and also colonial observatories. So the Carte du Ciel has always considered a sort of French project. Maybe it can be considered French-British project in consideration of so many observatories participating in this project. And we also can see here two different approaches from Gill and from Mouchet. Gill has a sort of elitist approach. When some of the observatories, especially those in Latin America, could not carry on their work, he wrote to Gill that there was no reason to be anxious about the problems that were raising in those observatories, because he wrote, "I'm not in the least disquieted by the civil war in Chile or other troubles which you describe in Buenos Aires. We shall get from these places precisely what I expected, nothing at all. Why disquiet yourself? It will not be a serious matter if we have to undertake all the southern hemisphere. It's sort of an astronomy of the best observatories, and we can do the work all alone. We don't need other cooperation." And Mouchet, on the contrary, was very attentive, a much more inclusive attitude. He really wanted that also as many observatories as possible can give their contribution. So he has a very global approach instead of in contrast with the Gill's approach. And feel that maybe a similar approach we can find a similar approach later when we compare the different attitude of Kaptein working on selected areas, also something like the selected the best man, and John Harry Hale, who was working about the International Australian Union. I like this letter from Hale to Kaptein. I think there are great advantages in selecting the best man for the difficult phases of the work, the selected plan of the selected areas, but he preferred that to have a more permanent, so perhaps a less effective organization like the International Solar Union. The contribution of Gill was also, as I told you, also about the practical aspect of the project. One of these was that of providing a central bureau of the measurement. He wrote to Moshe, the measurement of the plates can be best and most economically done in a central bureau. And this happened because a central bureau was established in Paris. And Gill also proposed that women's work for this purpose can be procured in Europe at so much less cost than here. And the bureau was entrusted to female staff, and the director was a woman, was Dorothea Klumpke, and it was adopted also by many other observatories like the Toulouse Observatories and the Vatican Observatory and others. And even after the death of Admiral Mouchet in 1892 and of his successor, Félix Tisserand, 4 years later in 1896, Gill always remained a consultant for the president of the Commission of the Cartousiel, who by default was the director of Paris Observatory. For instance, when the new director of Paris Observatory, Maurice Lévy, trying to relaunching the project, trying to solving the problems, he wanted to replace the southern observatories that could no more participate in the project. He asked the help of Gill for choosing some observatories of the Austral hemisphere that can replace the observatories of Rio de Janeiro and Santiago of Chile. Thank you. And for this reason, he proposed that, as we have John mentioned, the Cordoba Durchmusterung, and of course, Gill proposed that John Thom at Cordoba could replace one of the observatories, maybe La Plata or other ones. And also, when the new director was Benjamin Bayot, the correspondence, even after the retirement of Gill, still was in contact with them. And he, for instance, suggested that the Australian observatories were strongly involved in the project, and also proposed that the observatory of Hyderabad can be also involved in the project and replace one of the with flowers. And if we look at the correspondence of the Paris Observatory with the Cape Observatories, we see that after the retirement of Gill, the correspondence became more intense. And this is because because the new directors wanted to have the support of an important contributor that since from the beginning has guided this project. Other contributions from the Cape, I want to mention also the contribution given by the successor of Gill, Samuel Hall. He made important studies about the overlapping of the photographic plates. I have no time to explain this, but the corner of one plate was corresponded to the center of the other plate. So there was an overlapping And it was important to study this overlapping in order to identify if there are stars or simply defect in the glass. And he makes this kind of studies, but also investigated the plates constant and also determination of scale correction for different magnitude. And much important, he collaborated to the compilation of reference star catalog with Oscar Backlund. What was the destiny of the project? We know that the First World War, of course, was interrupted. There was an interruption. And in 1919, there was the establishment of the IAU. The first General Assembly was in Rome. And on that occasion, the completion of the project was entrusted to the Commission 23. But more important, the IAU supported also from a financial point of view the publication of the last volumes of the catalog, so that the catalog was achieved, but the chart was left unachieved. And in 1970, it was decided to stop forever the production of the chart. And on that occasion, Paul Couder, who was the president of the commission, wrote that the Cardiocel has established the foundation of the international scientific cooperation, introduced the application of photography, etc. Those who have generously cooperated to it deserve our gratitude. I think that the astronomers of the Cape are among these that we have to deserve. And if we consider the many reasons that for which the astronomers of the Cape were involved in this project. First, because the Great Comet was induced, the photograph of the Great Comet induced Mouchet to improve the photographic equipment at Paris observatories. Because the CPD provided the preliminary know-how for the Quartier du Ciel project. Because Gill acted as an eminence grise of the project. He suggested the procedures for the invitation, revised the list of invited people, secured the participation of British observatories, convinced the British astronomers to use refractors, oriented the Standing Commission to give priority to the astrographic catalog instead of the chart, suggested the publication of paper copies of all plates, somehow mediated the conflict with Picken, who was working to another competitive program, project, photographic star map, with in competition. I have no time to enter in this. Suggest also the establishment of a central bureau, proposed the use of male staff, and suggested to involve other observatories to replace the way travels. And also later the study of how, and so that I think that for all these reasons, we can say that without the contribution of the Cape Observatory, no Quartier du Ciel would have been maybe ever realized. And I think that this crucial role has been is clearly evident from this presentation. Thank you for your attention.
I was about to give the 5-minute warning. Well done. Now nicely in time. Any discussion?
One of the things that you didn't mention was one of the few observatories that actually completed its portion of the Quartier du Ciel in a reasonably timely manner was the observatory at the Cape.
Yes, one of the observatories that completed in a reasonable time its work was the Cape Observatory. This is not surprising because, of course, they had now the know-how for doing this. The CPD was an excellent preparation for this work. So they had all the knowledge for doing this this work in maybe in a fast way, much more than other observatories.
Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. I have a very small correction for the very beginning. You showed a photograph of a cluster in Perseus. It's an open cluster.
So, Ileana, you mentioned the astrographic catalogue was finally completed, was it 1962? What do you think the influence of this was on the science of astronomy? Did anyone actually use it?
Maybe you could stay behind there. I've been asked to have the speaker behind on the stage.
For one of the strange destinies that in astronomy are usual, this catalog was useful many years later because it was completely digitized at the U.S. Naval Observatory. It is very strange because no American observatory participated in the CARTOS project, but the astrographic catalog was completely digitized, and it provided an important reference catalog for all the for the first astrometric missions. For instance, Hipparcos. The Tycho catalog of reference stars that were used for the mission Hipparcos was extracted from AC2000. AC2000 was the digitized version of the astrographic catalog.
Any more? No one?
I must say that now that we have so many astrometric important missions like Gaia, the importance of this heritage is really to be studied. But I have seen that there are contributions about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the final contribution from this session is by Zheng Zhong Tang. It's Shanghai Observatory. Sit stiff.
Okay.
I have my glasses. It's 8.
Okay, thank you.
Shanghai Session Observatory contribution to the Cartier project, present, future.
Okay, good morning. Thank you for the organizer to give me a chance to introduce our contribution to the CDC project. Okay. My presentation will have 4 parts. First, background. The exchange of modern science, technology, and culture between China and the West started in 1582 when Metronome Ricci came to China. And Ricci brought astronomy, geography, mathematics, technologies, Western literature of his time to China. And also, he introduced Chinese culture, history, geography, products, customs, and medicine to the West. One of the most important work done by Ricci and his Chinese colleague Xu Guangji is they translated the Euclid's Elements of Geometry to Chinese, which is the first important science book to China. In 1872, Jesuit Academy decided to launch Jiangnan Project and successively build a series of scientific, cultural, educational, religious, and charitable institutions. One of them is Skyway Observatory, which is a predecessor of Shanghai Astronomical Observatory. There are many research fields of Skyway Observatory. Astronomy is one of it, but at that time, only meridian instruments worked in Skyway Observatory, mainly for timekeeping. Yeah, you know where about this. In 1887, Paris Observatory initiated the international project to map the sky, CDC. many observatories took part in this project. And the typical telescope for this project with a diameter of 33 centimeters. In the 1890s, Father Chevalier raised 100,000 francs and ordered a telescope to be installed in Cezanne Observatory. It is an enhanced version of CDC telescope with a diameter of 40 centimeters and a double longer focal length. More than 7,000 photographic plates had been taken by this telescope during the last century. And the targets include asteroids, comets, binary stars, variable stars, clusters, and galaxies. This picture of the moon is the first picture of Chinese telescope, which was taken in 1901. One of the most important work from this telescope is the equatorial catalog. It was observed during 1916 to 1917, and it took 10 years to do the analysis of the plates. And in 1928, the catalog was published in the Cezanne Observatory Journal, and it includes more than 14,000 stars along the equatorial belt. Because of the bigger diameter and the longer focal length, the results of the 40-centimeter telescope are quite good during 1901 to 1940s. And the left picture shows the machine colleagues used to analyze the plates. Okay, following the IAU resolution in 2000 on plate digitization and preservation, we started this work in 2003, and we served many observatories to check the status of plates in Chinese observatories. And in 2009, the plate digitization laboratory was created in Cezanne. And about 30,000 plates of all Chinese observatories were transferred to the plate archive of Cezanne Observatory before 2008. Under the support of Ministry of Science and Technology of China, the laboratory carried out the project of digitizing Chinese astronomical plates during 2012 to 2017. This table shows the basic information of all Chinese plates from different observatories and different telescopes and the time period. And this photo shows the number of plates in different years. Before we started the digitization of Chinese plates, we used two commercial scanners from Epson company to test scanning the plates. But the results showed that both scanners had a big errors in positioning and photometry. You can see the right picture. The distortion of the digitizer is about 20 micrometers. And also the uniformity of the photometry is not very good. So we decided to develop one special digitizer, similar like Harvard and Brussels, to digitize our plates. And we did this work jointly with Nishimura Company from Japan during 2013 to 2016. And in the next 2 years, we finished digitization of all 30,000 Chinese plates. Later in these 2 years, we have done some systematic analysis of the plates. One is photometric calibration. We use the magnetic term, color term, and flat field term to get a reliable magnitude. This show one sample of plate result from Yunnan Observatory. And finally, we get the photometry of 0.08 magnitude after the calibration. So these are very good results from the old plates. And in this year, we published the astrometric and photometric results from half of Chinese plates in the National Astronomical Data Center. And also we published a paper about this analysis. After we digitized all Chinese plates, our work were recognized by Shanghai local government, and they suggested us to provide service to other research fields like remote sensing, surveying and mapping, medicine, biology, and so on. So under the support of Shanghai government, we developed 4 new digitizers based on air bearing techniques. And now we have the capability of digitizing 100,000 plates per year. You can see the photos of 4 digitizers. All these digitizers can be used to digitize astronomical plates. And one digitizer can be used for colorful digitizing and for reflecting digitizing. And one digitizer can be used for scanning large plates. And another one, the right one, is for the film digitizing. The operation mode of our digitizer, each plate is scanned in many sub-images, and then we combine them to one big image, like a zigzag pattern in this picture. The size of each sub-image covers 1400 times 1400 pixels, and each pixel is about 11 micrometers in square. For one 30 centimeter times 30 centimeter plate, the scan costs about 3 minutes. So it's a very fast machine. Compared to the PDS, it needs 24 hours for the digitization. For the calibration of the digitizer, we used one special dot calibration plate, and we use it for calibration of distortion and misalignment, and also the positioning. Because this plate has more than 90,000 dots and distribute evenly, and each dot has very good positions, and the precision is better than 0.2 micrometers, so which is like a standard plate. This picture shows how we use this calibration plate to determine the distortion of the digitizer. So because this distortion is stable, so we can use this to collect the digitized images. Okay. And also we use the calibration plate to measure the misalignment of the 2 coordinate system. One is the CMOS camera, another is a platform. And after the adjustment, the residual errors in positioning is smaller than 0.1 micrometers. Okay, the same for the shifts. We can get also very high precision after the adjustment. After the debugging of the digitizer, we also need to do a performance test. And the first is the preheating time. Based on my experience of using PDS, it needs 24 hours to warm up the machine. For our digitizer, it needs about 1.5 hours to warm up. So every morning we need to turn on the machine and then waiting for 1.5 hours. 10 minutes. Okay, thank you. And also when we adjust the brightness of LED, we also need about 10 minutes to wait it becomes stable. These 2 pictures shows the intensity changes along the time when we adjust the LED brightness from 200 to 600 and from 600 to 200. So when we digitizing plates with different transparency. We fixed the brightness of the LED and adjust the exposure time based on the transparency of the plate. Another issue is flat. We take 1,000 images to generate the flat image and then collect other images with the flat image and calculate the deviation. The bottom figure shows after the collection of the flat, the non-uniformity of the plate is very small than 1% and within 16 hours, which means the flat is really stable. Another important issue is linear response because we use the LED and the optical lens and also CMOS camera. So we need to know where and how the linear response. We use different exposure time to scan the plate and then compare the exposure time and the corresponding intensity of pixels and calculate the fitting residual. The left image shows generally the linear response is quite good, but after the after the residual was calculated, we found that when the intensity is smaller than 30,000, there is obvious non-linear response. So we need to collect this. Yeah, we are happy that this non-linear response is stable. You can see the middle image. We scan 10 times and the non-linear response is the same. So we can collect it from the test scanning. And the right picture shows after collection of the non-linear response. And all these can be reduced to 0.3%. Okay, so it's really important for the good photometry from the plates. And also about the dynamic range, we use different exposure time and to check the intensity of pixels, whether they are changed along the exposure time. The left picture shows very short exposure time from 0.05 millisecond to 0.2 millisecond. And the right picture shows from 998 millisecond to 1,002 millisecond. The intensity changes with exposure time, so which proved that our dynamic range is about 4, so it's enough for the plates. And also we test the photometric repeatability. We scan one plate for 5 times and then compare the instrumental magnitude of all stars. You can see that the I mass of the repeatability is smaller than 0.01 magnitude. So it's good enough for the plates. And also we compare the plate digitization for different orientations, 0 degree, 90 degree, and 180 degrees. And then we compare the instrumental magnitude of the same stars and get the residual. From the picture, you can see that the I mass of difference is smaller than 0.03 magnitude, and there's no systematic differences. Okay. The positioning repeatability is very good, about 35 nanometers, because we use the air bearing technology. And also we rotate the plates to get the difference of positions, and the result is very good to 0.17 micrometers. Okay, in the past 3 years, we digitized the plates from Italy, Uzbekistan, and Chile, and all plates have been sent back to their home country and safely. And here is some initial results from the plates of Uzbekistan of 2 asteroids. And these pictures shows digitization work of Shanghai Natural Museum, colorful digitization. For the future plan, in the past 5 years, we have signed agreements and MOU with other observatories, and this Torino and Chile, and Argentina and South Africa Observatory, and we will cooperate with South Africa and Argentina Observatory to digitize their plates. And under the coordination of the PDPP working group, we are willing to cooperate with observatories all over the world to digitize the historical plates, especially the CDC plates, to do research long-term domain astronomy and based on the digitized data. Thank you for your attention.
Any discussion?
Thank you. I have just a question for you because, as far as I know, there is no official connection with the Cartesian project. Who was the astronomer that ordered the instrument? And have you any correspondence in the archives with Paris observatories and with other observatories participating in the project?
Okay, for CDC, the telescope was not the official participants, but the father, that time, they ordered a similar telescope and a similar observational mode and a similar analysis method to do this research. You mean at that time or now? The father, okay, sorry, I need to go back. Okay, Chevrolet. He was the director, and he used this telescope for more than 20 years, and he published many works. Yeah. Okay.
Any more?
The background knowledge in this, Chris Corbally.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Could you describe now your project of sending a set of, as you were, test plates around the various digitizing centers like Paris and Harvard?
Yeah,
That'd be helpful.
Yeah, last month we took our plates, some astronomical plates, and also the test plate to Paris. Yeah, unfortunately, their plate holder is exactly 30 centimeters times 30 centimeters, but our calibration plate is 32. 32 okay, parameters, centimeters. So we will order another calibration plate to fit the size. But we have digitized our astronomical plates, and now we are analyzing the positioning and the photometry. Yeah, yeah. Okay, we will check with colleagues in Harvard. Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a very important. Yeah, job.
Any more discussion?
As far as I know, the Sikaway Observatory was in connection with the Italian Spectroscopic Society for the solar monitoring. Have you any photograph of sunspots?
Yes, yes. Yeah, in our CSM plate cap, there are many plates of the sun.
And what about the correspondence, the archives of the observatory? Is it possible to have access to letters
Yeah,
from
sure.
that time?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, we keep in touch.
You're always welcome. Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Any more discussion? If not, then thank again all the speakers of this session.
Okay, thank you.
And we reconvene at 1:30. See you then.
See, our world is slowly dying. I'm not wasting no more time. Don't think I could believe you. My hands are little. My hair is church is not starting. The house is quite strong. Mr. Brother, there's no feeling. Don't you let be silence and when I must be scattering. Don't think you will forget me. You never said a word, you didn't send me no letter. Don't think I could forgive you. See, our world is slowly dying, I'm not wasting no more time. Don't think I could believe you. Yeah, I've been for glory, thoughts in my head for please. Think I could forgive you. Let you see, church is not starving, the house is. It was great at the very start. Some shadow couldn't stand to be far apart. Closer the better. And we're picking sides and stand outside. Talk right and